Well, welcome everyone. Today we have a wonderful panel and we're going to be discussing building student skills in and out of the workforce. I'm happy to be here today to be your moderator. My name is Keisha Taylor. I am the Senior Director of Postsecondary and Partnership Engagement at NAF. NAF has been around for 40 years. We work with high school career academies across the country, helping students become college and career ready in many different facets and getting ready for internships in their high school experience. I'm joined here today with Norma Gaier from the University of Texas. And I'm also here with Andrés Cuervo from LA College Promise Works. And I will have them introduce themselves and their role in their organizations. I'm going to start today with you, Norma. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Keisha. It's great to be with all of you today. So my name is Norma Gaier, and I serve as the Executive Director for Texas Career Engagement at UT Austin. Texas Career Engagement was created 2 years ago for a very specific purpose at UT. UT has 16 career centers within each college and school. And our office serves as an overarching initiative to ensure equitable access for our students for anything career resources, services, programs, internships, experiential learning, certainly, of course, jobs, right? And success beyond the postgraduate success. We also center our work on ensuring that employers have equitable access to diverse talent across the UT campus. So just to share a little bit about the work that's happening at UT and the work that I represent. Thank you, Keisha.
Thanks so much, Norma. Andrés.
Hi, Keisha, and hi, Norma, and thank you so much for having me, and special thanks to the College Careers Institute as well. Thrilled to be here. I'm with the Office of Mayor Eric Garcetti and his team of Workforce and Education, specifically managing LA College Promise Works. And for those familiar with the Promise initiatives across the country, LA College Promise here in LA expanded recently to include workforce development and career and job placement. And that's what LA College Promise Works is. And I can't wait to share more with you all about the program.
All right, so we're going to get started and talk a little bit about the goals of the session. And so the goal of the session is, we're going to talk about how colleges can get a better understanding and utilize these organizations and all the many different facets and support services that they have to help our students prepare for future careers. And so I'm so excited to hear from each of you and what you have to bring to the table. And so when we think about your overall role in your organization, and you can feel free to share with us some of the exciting activities and opportunities that you have going on at your school and within your university, I should say, and within the city that you work in. So Norma, I'll start with you.
Oh gosh, that's a big question. And so what I will share, I think that it's really important for us to focus our work on inclusivity, and also to focus our work on two things: how to educate students appropriately in and outside of the classroom, as well as what is the market demand at this time? What are the economic needs in our workforce, both respective to in our backyard locally, as well as looking at our global market? And so a lot of the work that we do within Texas Career Engagement really takes those perspectives quite seriously. We have a team focused on employer engagement, outreach, and also education. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later this afternoon. But it's critical to understand that every campus is different and works differently and manages relationships differently. So in our work, we assume that perhaps Some of our employer partners don't know anything about us. So we really come to the table with, let us help share the resources and the knowledge that we have about our campus, about our students, to find that talent pipeline that they are seeking to fill. And on the other side of that, we're working closely with our faculty, and I'll showcase some of our programming that we're doing in that space around curriculum enhancement and development. And then also, of course, helping our students prepare for experiences. We have a keen eye on the fact that students, the primary experience that students need in order to be successful is just that, experience, right? Whether it's a part-time job, a work-study job, a project that they're working on, a student org they're involved in, we want to ensure that students connect the dots. They're able to see that all of those experiences inform, impact, and engage them in those next steps along their career journey. Does that kind of answer your question, Keisha?
Absolutely. Yes, it does. I'm going to have a follow-up for you in a little bit. Andres, what are your thoughts? What would you like to share?
Well, Keisha, if there's been a remarkable story in the country is the expansion of Promise programs across our states, across our cities, and here in Los Angeles, we have the nation's largest community college district. And in 2016, what we did was launch LA College Promise. And this was a partnership between the city of Los Angeles and the Los Angeles Community College District. Mayor Garcetti led that partnership and launched it officially in 2017, which was when the program was deployed. And since then, we've worked to go beyond free tuition. I think the framing for Promise has been and centered around tuition, which has been has had an incredible impact in terms of enrollment. Here in LA, we've seen a 56% increase in high school students going into higher ed, into our community college system. And so what we've been wanting to do since then is not just rest on our laurels. How can we continue to expand and serve our students? And the way that we've been doing that is to continue to expand the partnership between the city and the community college district. So that has looked in the shape of having dash bus passes for students here so they can get to school. This is partnering with our ambassador program in the city, the mayor's office, to give students the ability to go abroad and, build networks and relationships with other schools and students abroad. And then what I'm actually a part of is Promise Works, and that's what we just launched this September. The timing of it couldn't be more critical. As you know, COVID has very much impacted our day-to-day lives, but also the job opportunities of students. They're facing the toughest job market right now. And for us, what that meant is we needed to focus on our Promise students, which are first-time students attending community college. These are students that also have to qualify for financial aid. So we're serving our most in need students within the district. And in terms of career services, we wanted to build a dedicated team that could be there for them. So we launched LA College Promise Works to hire a team of career coaches that's going to be helping them with skills during this time. But we've also brought on board 500 subsidized placed opportunities to give them internships right away. And we're building additional partnerships with employers to build internship and job offerings during this time. So we're stepping in to make sure that no student gets left behind during this time during COVID.
That's great. And so, both of you touched on the importance of work readiness and having the opportunity and access to, expand on those skills and be prepared for the world of work. So we obviously know the whole idea of going to college, getting a certificate, getting a degree is to, of course, have that job at the end. I mean, that's the golden ticket, we're told. So what do you think are some of the most important skills that college students need, and what resources? You mentioned a few at both of your institutions and in the city. But what are those important resources that students need, aside obviously from getting the degree or certificate thereafter? Norma, why don't you go first?
Sure. So at UT, we have a focus on what we call career readiness competencies. NACE has, the National Association of Colleges and Employers, did some pretty extensive research and work to determine employers in all industries and markets, what primary competencies are they seeking in their new hires, in their interns that they consider. And there's a list of 8 competencies. I can tell you that many of those competencies are universal and for the most part are applicable across the board for industries. But one that is not specifically called out in those competencies is resiliency and adaptability. And as Andres, was talking about the impact that COVID has had on the market, on even students' ability to thrive and progress in academic programs, all of that has been impacted on some level. And that ability to pivot, to adapt, and to be resilient has never been more important than today. So I would say that really looking at UT, we look at interdisciplinary experiences that where students develop competencies. I can remember, I've been doing this work for such a long time. I can remember when this degree meant this job. That's not the case anymore. Students now can study in an area they have a deep interest in, and maybe they want to do some project work in and learn more about, but their career path takes them in a different way, right? And so the idea of focusing on competencies and looking at interdisciplinary experiences, looking at co-curricular experiences, and most critically, looking at ways for students to engage in some type of project work, experiential learning, whether it's service learning or it's community service or engagement or an internship. All of those experiences is what we kind of latch on to teach students. Those experiences will inform, yay or nay, I'm going in the right direction. And so I tend to think of it like, you see these really cool shoes and you're like, oh, I like those shoes. And you put those shoes on and you walk in them for about a mile and you realize, oh, my feet hurt, right? If you have an internship and you try it on and it doesn't work, that's okay. That's not the direction you want to go in, right? It informs your career trajectory and your path. So as many experiences, as many shoes that students can put on and try and walk in will help educate them on their career trajectory overarchingly. So I'll stop there because I could talk about that for a long time, but I'd love to hear Andres too and what his thoughts are.
Well, one of the things that you brought up that's a really, good piece of information for us is around that career readiness course and the competencies that we know that employers are looking for, and really calling out at this time, especially the one, related to being adaptable and resilient for sure. And so, Andreas, for you, thinking about the work that you're doing, those important skills that college students need and the resources to help them.
Yeah, well, one thing that I love is that Norma represents the 4-year university track, and we work within the 2-year track, but our students we're part of the pipeline to the 4-year university too. So I love that we have the full end of the K through 12 to university pipeline here. I also want to acknowledge that we also serve students that are in trades that complete their 2-year degree and go on to become electricians, nurses, and other trades that don't necessarily require a 4-year degree. So with over 300 professions that we work with, something that we analyze is what's the baseline skills that students need that maybe they're not getting in the classroom, because the classroom is equipping them with the knowledge, the technical and educational knowledge that they need to succeed, what we're coming in with our career coaches is saying, well, maybe you're not going to learn about how to write a resume in the classroom, but we can take care of that. And so what we do is we've identified 4 pillars of skills that we really need them to master. And the first one is we do a level of career exploration. We use Career One Stop, which is a service by the U.S. Department of Labor. It's actually a website where they do an assessment of their talents, what they're interested in, and they're guided into paths that are connected to their talents and interests. And from there, we have a conversation. This is a one-on-one conversation that our coaches are having with each of the students that we serve. And from there, they're able to, like Norma was saying, do these shoes fit, right? Connected to the classes that they're taking, to the internships that they're applying to. And this is really being built upon the community college district's efforts to align curriculum with the needs of employers too. So we're really completing the full circle here. And then the other 3 that we focus on are around digital branding. I mean, it's true before COVID, but even more now because of COVID, that your digital presence really matters. So we help students create a LinkedIn profile, a Twitter account, but we also have a partnership with ZipRecruiter where our students can create a profile and apply to jobs. The last piece connected to this too is that we then do a formal job referral. We train students to know how to apply to jobs, where to apply to jobs, interviewing. Those are all skills, kind of what's your background? How are you dressing up for the interview? Those are basic things that, well, we call them basic, may not be so basic for students, especially if you don't have a support network at times, which I think we sometimes assume all students have. A lot of students don't, especially if they come from low income backgrounds. So we're expanding that family of support, of mentors for them, so they know that someone has their back. I think that's what we're trying to do. So it's skills, but it's also kind of non as tangible areas like your Zoom background, for example, which is not really a skill, but it's definitely being self-aware and presentable for employers and those interviews and opportunities.
Very helpful. I think, thinking about the whole student and meeting all of their needs, especially if there isn't that support system to lend and offer suggestions and resources and recommendations, very, very helpful. I think back to, I mean, we can all think back to when we were in high school, and it would have been very helpful. Someone would be able to kind of walk and guide us through whatever the LinkedIn of that moment was. I mean, we won't tell our ages, but I think when we think about it, preparing for that first, resume, and then also thinking about our social media presence, which of course LinkedIn is so, powerful in making those connections. And ZipRecruiter, as you mentioned, I think very, very helpful to have that resource and support. And I guess, the follow-up question to that is really around thinking about, some of the programs and initiatives that you've mentioned already and others that may come to mind as well, thinking about how they have helped to improve the likelihood of career success for your students. And maybe you have those anecdotal stories, you might be able to share with us. And then are you looking at measurable outcomes for the resources to kind of track the success of your programs? And I know, Andres, your programs are fairly new, starting up, but I'm sure there's a track record, and for you as well, Norma. So who'd like to go? I'll change it up. Who would like to go first?
I can go. So, I think in terms of measurable outcomes, um, when there isn't a support system or when we're introducing a new support system uh, for students, something that we really care about is centering the student experience and meeting the students at where they're at. And I think it's funny, when we were going to roll out this program, it was meant to be in person. We were going to have career coaches on the campuses serving the students directly. It's now all through Zoom. And I think that alone has presented new skills that we've had to teach the students about, you know, being on time on a Zoom call. How do you talk on a Zoom call? Um, what are some of the um, kind of like non-technical aspects of it that students should care about too, which is the content of their interview, how personable they are with employers. Those are things that we've had to really shift during this time, but it hasn't impacted the outcomes to us. Student success looks like how many students are we placing and how many students are meeting those 4 pillars that I was talking about earlier. So we actually use a software system for our case management system called Monday.com. And through Monday, each of our coaches has inputs the information of the student that we're working with and tracks the measurable outcomes that we have, which are those 4 pillars. So as soon as they meet with the student and do that one-on-one career exploration, there's a check mark there. Have they created their LinkedIn? Check mark done. Have they been placed into a job? Check. Do we have their career path? Check. And so what's cool about money.com is that we're also able to track percentages. Like we're able to, I can tell you 50% of our students have done career exploration, 25% need to be placed. Those are the kind of things that we wanted to have hard data on so we can also have a continuous sense of improvement into the program. And we're also constantly making sure to improve in areas that are non-data based. And those are the relationships between our program and the colleges that we're working with, because we're part of multiple families here. We're part of our own program as Promise Works, but we also work with 9 colleges that have different Promise teams. So we're a partnership between Promise Works, the Promise teams of the colleges, plus the city. And those are partnerships also that we're also making sure to communicate not only our data outcomes, but things like what kind of culture do we want to build as part of the program. That's the student center piece that I was highlighting earlier.
That's great. Norma.
Yes. So as I said at the start, our work is really centered on equitable access. So we have a heavy focus on D&I in all of the work that we do. So I'm going to just share a little bit about some of the ways that we are established within Texas Career Engagement on our campus to specifically support career awareness and success for all UT students. So our career education model is set up in quite a different way than most career centers. You might have career coaches and career counselors who are focused on specific industries or working with certain majors. At Texas Career Engagement, we've kind of really strayed away from that model and instead have determined that there are specific identities that need a different level of support. So for example, our first gen students, our students who are on campus who are veterans, those students who have disabilities, whether visible or not, students who identify as LGBTQ, students who identify within a certain ethnic group. They might identify as Black or as Latinx. We actually have designed our career education model to focus on our students who have different identities or intersecting identities, right? And we have found that there are certain resources and support systems that need to be in place in order to help those students be most successful and most comfortable in that career awareness and career journey that they're going to engage in. So that's one way that we're doing this, and we're tracking the number of students, the outcomes, are students aware of and satisfied with their own self-awareness and career awareness along the journey. We also have really stepped away from a traditional employer engagement model that might be more transactional. Instead, we have launched what we're calling Hook Talent EDU. Now, UT is all about, many people know, hook 'em, right? the Longhorns. And so we're calling it Hook Talent EDU. And what this is an employer educational series where we are working with employers to teach best practices on how to engage talent on our campus, how to engage certain identities and populations on our campus, how to, in some cases, because of the pandemic, convert their in-person internships to virtual experiences that students can still participate in. So it's a very proactive approach that we are taking. We're measuring success through our Hire You Texas, powered by Handshake. We use Handshake to track all of our employer engagement and our student engagement as well. We track how many students, how many applications they make, where they land. We seek input from employers as well to get that feedback so that we better understand what markets need more help, what areas are in demand. We also have launched a 0 credit internship and career experiences course. Many students are within majors that do not require an internship. This particular course, its curriculum that we've developed, is free. So we're removing the financial barriers of having to pay for a class, but they get the very specific curriculum to best prepare and understand what an internship is all about. And we help them identify a paid internship experience that they can learn from. On top of this experience will go on their transcript so that when they are looking for jobs, when an employer says, did you engage in an internship? They can say yes, even though it wasn't required of their academic degree. So again, we're leveling the playing field for our students, those who, again, are underserved in some capacity, not just based on identity, but maybe because their major doesn't take them down that internship path. So we're saying anybody can have an internship. We're here to help and support you.
That's exciting. And just a quick question: when did you start that course offering?
In the fall.
Wow! Wow!
In the fall,
we have
we have about 300 students enrolled this semester, and so we're now registering for the spring.
Outstanding. Yeah, great way to remove those barriers, as you mentioned. I think that's very, very important. And follow up to that is just, we talked a little bit about, COVID and some of the shifts that have, had to happen. Are there any more that, practices that we've started or resources that we've really rolled out at this point that you think we'll stick with because it's served, our students well in this moment at this really unprecedented time? Andreas, and then Norma.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because I think something that's happening in tangent with COVID has been the push for social racial justice in America. And I think as we launched this program, we were being very mindful of how do we serve our students in a really dedicated and earnest way. And the reason I say that is because the majority of our students are minorities, but in LA, minorities are actually majorities. 50% of the city is Latinx. And our program serves 90% Latinos and 30% African Americans. So our student body is students of color. And I think for us, when we were creating our team, we wanted to make sure to bring on board coaches that were had the sensitivity to work with students from low-income backgrounds, that had the experience of working with students of color, that knew how to talk to students that are formerly homeless, that are queer, that are undocumented. Those are populations that we work with all the time. And I think COVID has exacerbated those inequalities. So we wanted to make sure that our team and our program, especially when we're coaching them to succeed in careers, that they feel listened to and helped with in a way that is dignified and honors their own experiences. So I think something that's gonna stick, to answer your question, is building more mindful teams, and whether that's digital or a more dedicated team that's can respond to the populations we serve is going to be great.
That's great. That so
Yeah,
timely and very needed. Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I,
Norma.
yeah, I couldn't agree with Andres more on that topic. It's I think opened up um, opportunity for us to really rethink and reimagine how we engage with all of our populations. I'll tell you, just give you a tactical program that launched because of COVID that I think will stick, and it's a partnership that we had with our Texas X's, which is our alumni base. We worked with our alumni office to very quickly launch a mentoring platform, not only for our students to benefit from, but for our alumni who, because of the economy and all that we're faced with, are also finding themselves in difficult situations. So we launched a mentoring platform that would have normally taken 9 months to a year to launch. We did it in 2 months because and you know what? It was going to happen, but we were able to make it happen so that when our spring graduates, our May 20 graduates graduated, we could say, here's a gift for you. Join this platform, find a mentor, develop networks and relationships with people who care about you because they're your fellow graduates, right? And so we were able to launch this quickly with the support of campus and other entities. And this is not only sticking, but it is growing by leaps and bounds, and has proven to be a tremendous resource. The other thing, kind of holistically, that I think is going to stick that I'm really excited about, um, I really believe that we have figured out that we don't all always have to do work in person, and that while it's exhausting, right? Zoom after Zoom is exhausting, and there are certain skills, like Andres was sharing earlier. We've got to pay attention to our background, and there's so many things we need to teach our students to be aware of. It's really enabled students to engage in opportunities that I think they normally would not have been able to engage in. An example: a UT Austin student, a first gen student who lives in the Deep South Valley, is majoring in entertainment arts and would love an experience in the LA area. So they want to go to your city, Andres. Many of them can't afford it. Many of them don't know how to get there. This virtual engagement has enabled students like that to have like experiences that are relevant, that are in the market that they're seeking to connect with, because there is more flexibility in those kinds of experiences. So I that is exciting to me. As exhausting as this work is remotely, I do always look for those silver lining, little nuggets, and I think that is one of them. Is that it has increased our ability to be more flexible and to redefine what work looks like.
Keisha, can I just say, Norma, we
Yeah.
have a website called findyourfuture.la. So if that student wants to look for opportunities and resources here in LA, we got a website for the student.
Yay!
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. And I asked that question because I do think, I mean, to both of your, salient points about the definite opportunities that COVID has presented in a very positive way, reimagining where we work and how we work, I think are really strong highlights of this, pandemic, and really imagining that you can work beyond where you are, or have an internship beyond where you are. I think we thought about this before, but we really had to take some time. I really like, Norma, the whole idea of the pivot and giving a gift to your May 2020 grads around mentorship. And, it aligns so much with, what Andres was talking about, mentorship is so important at all levels, right? From the beginning of this experience, the middle, the end, and beyond. And I think that is that's wonderful that the university was able to make that pivot and add that gift. So my final question, and you've all both touched on this around partnership engagement and opportunities that are really important for our students to have. And so, thinking about incorporating employers and the business sector into the work that we do of educating college students, how do make those connections and build those opportunities for students to have so that they're prepared beyond, of course, your rich curriculum at your institutions? Would you like to go
Yeah,
first,
I
Norma?
can,
Oh, Andres,
no, please go ahead.
we're gonna figure it out.
Okay.
Norma, and then Andres.
All right. I'm watching the clock too, so I want to make sure that we have enough time for Andres. So having a relationship with our chamber in our economic development office in our backyard, that's important, always important. And we do a lot with our chamber. In fact, I'll give you a quick example. We have a program at UT Austin called University Leadership Network. These are students who have financial need. They are also often identify as first gen, often identify within one of our ethnic groups. And they are a cohort of 500 students. They're given scholarship to engage in learning more about themselves and their career plans, and then actually engaging in an on-campus internship, an off-campus internship, and then doing some curriculum to prepare them for the workforce or their next step. They might go on to grad school or to another terminal degree. We took that program, and that program is not in our office. It's in one of our it's in our portfolio, but not in Texas Career Engagement. We took that program to our chamber and said, we need your help. Would any of you employers be interested in coming out and doing, not coming out, but virtually offering some fireside chats so that students can learn more about your organizations? Would any of you be interested in developing some case studies or some projects that they can work on and solve? Do you have a problem within your organization that our students can bring some different perspective into the table and give them a positive experience? Do any of you have internships that you can host, right? So that's just one example of taking a program that has a need to the community where we know they need that talent. They need those insights. Because bottom line is our students know so much more about so much of the things that we maybe are not kept abreast of, particularly in the digital space, right? And we were able to increase those relationships and to weave the employer engagement into the campus in a very intentional way with a population that really, really needed their mentoring and needed some projects to learn from. So I would say that, that's one example, but also looking at we have within our president's office what's called an Austin Innovation Board. These are movers and shakers in the Austin market who are in mid-level organizations that are growing, and they're getting their feet on the ground. We are also ingrained in their work. We listen to them. We bring talent to the table. We make them aware of the student demographics and population on our campus to make those connections. So sometimes it's really grassroots kinds of things that we are doing in order to build that pipeline. Those experiences turn into so much more, right? And that's how we're building relationships. We have some other programs I'd love to share with you, but I'm going to stop. But just really looking at innovative ways to bring the talent and the employers together is a big focus in the work that we do.
Absolutely. I'm sure, Norma, you'll be able to share some resources after the session that we'll make available to all of the participants. Andreas.
Yeah, I agree with Norma. I think the first step is reaching out to those institutions, your local city government, your chamber of commerce, to explore what's possible. And I think what the community college district did here in LA was exactly that. I mean, LA College Promise Works and the work that we're doing is really an innovative partnership between the community college district, the mayor, the mayor's fund for Los Angeles, which fundraised the money to make the program possible, and the city's workforce development system. I mean, I don't think there's a partnership like this in the country. And we're really piloting for the first time what does it look like to bring together the city resources and educate higher ed institutions resources to specifically focus on employment and workforce development for, in this case, first time students. And it's a partnership that I think wouldn't be possible with any entity on its own. It's something that had to happen together, and this has been in the works for maybe 2 years. So for us to be able to launch it this fall during COVID, as students are facing the toughest job market, is really almost a miracle, but also a blessing for all of the students that we're working with. And what we keep hearing on the ground is students are very hungry for opportunities and for internships. And so for us to be able to say, here are, like, literally here, there's money on the table, here are internships that we've been able to secure uh, with employers that care deeply about student access. And I think another great thing about um, COVID and social justice movements that are happening right now is that employers are also reevaluating their commitment to community, their commitment to uplifting youth locally. And so I would encourage members of the audience to engage those employers too, as to how are employers defining their community engagement and building actionable commitments to bring internships to the table. And I'm really happy to say that here in LA, we've seen that. We've seen companies commit. And we've also seen companies that, as much as a lot of small businesses and companies are struggling right now, there are companies that are doing really well right now. And I would really encourage our audience to identify those locally in their city or in their community and engage those employers. A lot of digital access companies, a lot of service companies right now are doing very well. They're actively hiring. And here in LA, we're very blessed with a growing tech sector that's doing really well as well. To Norma's point, we also have sort of like a tech council here with companies that are engaged. And the mayor actually launched recently what's more or less a commitment to equity, where the companies in LA, as part of that definition, are also looking to employ more to diversify their workforce. And so that's another commitment, right? Like if you are committed to diversity and inclusion, the actionable step is hiring local students.
Yeah, powerful, powerful. Fireside chats. Go right out and go knock on the doors of the chambers and the government officials to really make those connections for our young people. We are at the end of our session, which is just, it's been a powerful amount of time here to talk with you, all of your recommendations and resources, and many things that I have to go look up and find more about, including Handshake, which was one I've heard a lot about it, but I want to know a little bit more about how it works. And Monday. So that I definitely I'm intrigued. Thank you so much for participating today.